Hey guys, Aaron McKenzie here from Originofenergy. Today I'm going to go through 5 steps to improve your horizontal pulling and pushing. The first step is to self-assess. So a really basic way to do it is to do a bodyweight row or a bent over row and film yourself from the side and look at the range of motion and see how far you go into that dead hang position and how far you can pull through. You could also film from other angles to see left and right variance. The next step is to perform some fast reps and film them and look out for common faults like the headbanger. When you're looking at the push-up, it's a good idea to set it up in a version that you can perform comfortably and go as deep as you can. Get a good stretch through the chest and see where that end range of motion is, and then push all the way up and see where the end range of motion is with that. Then you can go into performing some reps and seeing what style of reps you're doing and if you've got good form and technique. So look out for the common classics, the partial range pumper that thinks they can do 1,000 reps, but really they can only do 1 or 2 good reps. The headbanger, where they drop the head down, arms, and see how close they can get their head to the ground. The chicken winger, where you ride the shoulder joint, where the elbows come up and stick up and the head drops down and you're not loading the muscles effectively. Finally, we have the stripper push-up, one of my personal favorites. Now we see this everywhere in all different movements, whether people squat, whether they deadlift, pull up, dip, and they're trying to get a mechanical advantage, so they're moving around the resistance. Your respiratory pattern will affect the way in which you move in the shoulder girdle. So for example, if you're just neck breathing all the time, then you'll find that those muscles around the neck are tighter. So if you load up the shoulder girdle, those muscles will contract and pull first. So what you want to do is disperse that load through the whole shoulder girdle into the rib cage more evenly, and that takes practice with breathing and with the way in which you train. For loads that don't require heavy spinal stabilization or rib cage stabilization, so a bracing, then you can breathe naturally with the movement. So as you breathe in, you come out of the fetal position. As you breathe out, you go into the fetal position. With heavier loads, there'll be a threshold that you reach where stabilization becomes more important than respiration. In this case, the breath is retained. On the pulling movement, you'll be in a dead hang. Take a big breath in, hold, pull, and then release the air as you're lowering the weight. On the push, you'll lock out, take a big breath in, lower the weight, and then release the breath through the sticking point as you push up. The healthier and stronger someone is, that threshold for maintaining respiration while moving is much higher. So some of the best athletes that I've worked with were able to breathe smoothly even while under heavy load, because they had such strong respiratory capacity and strength through the intercostal muscles, all the muscles that stabilize the rib cage and the spine. Those that have spinal instabilities will have to stabilize the spine, and they're more likely to hold their breath. Your posture is constantly programming the way in which you stand and the way in which you accept load into the rib cage. Now, if you're spending long hours on the computer and becoming an internet troll, then you've got to watch out for the posture that you're holding. Another awful habit is looking down at your phone and scrolling for long periods of time. If you want to ruin your opportunity to get strong in the upper body, this is one sure way to do it. Step number 2 is to mobilize. Using a foam roller is a great way to open up the rib cage and allow for optimal thoracic expansion and extension. That way the shoulder blade can move across the rib cage more effectively. So rolling up and down the foam roller is great, getting some tension relief. You don't want to go too hard, so 5 to 7 out of 10 is a good level of intensity, and you want to focus in on those tight spots, use the breath to release them, and allow for that tissue to open up. But always be mindful and make sure that you're alleviating tension, not creating tension. You can use the roller through the pec minor and through the chest to open that up, so that way you can get deeper into push-ups. And you can also use the massage ball around the shoulder girdle to ensure that the shoulder blade floats freely and there's no excessive tension between the shoulder blades and the upper trap. Band tractioning is awesome for the shoulder. I like the nice deep dead hang with the single arm. You want to make sure that you really relax and let the band do the work. That's the beauty of it. The band will keep pulling even when you relax. So it's not like a solid object. It will keep going away from you. So you can go into that nice deep lat stretch. Then you can go into the meat hook stretch where you're crossing over, really open up the rhomboids and the traps. Then you can come around into the chest stretch. So you really want to feel the shoulder girdle move around the rib cage and that chest open right up. Then you can internally rotate into that back lever stretch, opening up the shoulder as well as the bicep and the chest. And then you can come around into that reverse meat hook stretch as well. One of my favorite mobilizations is the floor flow. So this one is a combination of different Feldenkrais style movements, but you're keeping the head on the ground the whole time. So this is something that I've come up with. I'm sure other people have done it in the world, but the way in which I teach it is that you maintain minimal muscular effort and you allow for the head to stay on the ground the whole time. And you're reaching past, coming up, breathing in, opening up that chest, reaching right around, and there's a domino effect. So once you get to that nice cross arm position, then the other arm will start and come over. Then the hips turn, and then you repeat that. And you're just going from side to side. It feels awesome. It's a great way to relieve tension, and it also doubles as an activation exercise to activate tissues through the whole chain. The most basic mobilization exercises for the row is to perform the row. So you can do it either body weight or you can do weighted, but you're really going to use that full end range of motion to open up the back. So in that deep dead hang, you're going to let those rhomboids and traps stretch right out. Then you pull all the way through, engage those lower traps, and stretch out the chest. In the push-up, you want to come down nice and deep and stretch that chest out. Choose a light version so it's quite comfortable. Then when you go up, you're going to push all the way through. The hollow arch and the horizontal hang in the rings is a great way to open up the chest and that anterior chain, and also open up that posterior chain. So when you breathe in, you're going to expand the chest, turn the rings out, and feel those lower traps engage and the rib cage open up and that whole spine extend. Then when you exhale, you go into flexion and the shoulder blades come around the rib cage, go into internal rotation. Now you want a nice even movement through that whole chain. You also want to make sure that you open up the front of your hips when you come up. You want to keep a nice tongue position on the roof of the mouth to stabilize the neck while doing this. The opposing movement is the prone horizontal arch. So you want to do the same movement. You're going to exhale into that nice hollow position. This time you're engaging the anterior chain to do that. Then you're going to lower through the anterior chain into that nice extended position. Now you're looking out for any points that are going to move too much. You want to spread that force evenly. Don't overextend in the lower back or the neck. I find all the mobilizations great for pre-training. That way I can really get in touch with my body and feel what's going on before I get into my workout. Step number 3 is to stabilize. Now you want to use stabilization exercises to activate at the beginning of your session. So I love the shoulder band warm up. Using the shoulder band here, I'm going from the hips all the way up overhead, circling out, and I'm circling in on the way down, activating that posterior chain. Then I'm pulling on those different lines, those 5 different angles to really activate that back and all of those stabilizers around the shoulder girdle. Then I'm going into internal, external rotation, so activating the external rotators, activating the internal rotators. Then I turn around and do the same for the anterior chain, externally rotating the arms as I'm going up in little circles, reaching up overhead, feeling those shoulder blades come up and around as I reach up. Then internally rotating as I come down, activating all those internal rotators, stabilizing the shoulder joint, then going into the back lever reach and into that planche press, then going on a 45-degree angle, pressing forward, then out into that nice cross position, stretching and activating the chest, reaching up overhead, stretching again and activating the chest, and reaching straight up overhead. All of these are awesome for activating the shoulder. The next one is the dislocate. You want to lengthen out through your arms and feel that shoulder blade go through depression to protraction, elevation, into retraction and depression behind. Next exercise is the scap pull. So doing these, just activating those lower traps, middle traps, and the rhomboids, really getting that nice pull through, and then disengaging, getting a nice stretch. Then you're going to go into the serratus push-up, locking the elbows and feeling those serratus move the shoulder blades around the rib cage into protraction, then sinking through and stretching it out. Then you've got some bent over scap pulls, so doing a straight arm external rotation down the side into the T position, into a Y position. Hitting these different positions will activate the back and that posterior chain. Something that's often overlooked is neck stabilization in horizontal pulling and pushing. When you're doing the row, the weight of your head is coming back. So it's really important to have the tongue on the roof of the mouth and close the teeth and feel that nice strength through there, and feel the deeper muscles in the front surface of the neck turn on. Now this is a drill just to activate in a rotation, so that way you feel the muscles across the front surface of the neck change into the side of the neck and the other side of the neck. You want to keep the spine nice and long and feel that deep activation. You can also do these with the Swiss ball, so you're doing it against the wall for the front of the neck and the back of the neck. They work great to feel that nice sense of activation. When you're using the exercises pre-workout, it's just a light activation. You're not trying to overly fatigue the tissues. Now I use all of these exercises to fatigue at the end of my workout to develop postural endurance and spinal stability and joint stability. The fourth step is strengthening through a full range of motion. So you want to choose a version that you can perform comfortably and really get that nice deep stretch at both ends of the movement. So if you're doing the row, stand up, really let that whole back stretch out and really feel the chest stretch out as you pull through. You can use different lines of pull. You can use a rotational grip. You can do wide to get more posterior delt. You can just use a parallel grip. Once you can perform standing rows well and get a high number of reps, walk forward and put more load into the upper body and take more load out of the feet. These are great with the bent knee. You can progress to a straight leg and then an elevated leg. All of these are awesome exercises if done through a full range of motion. If you feel that that range of motion is limited, go back, get more reps on the easier version and build your body up. Once you can perform a decent amount of reps with the feet elevated, then you can go into full body weight front lever rows. If you want to develop in the front lever but you don't have time, these are awesome. They're a great way to use the time more efficiently because you're going to get that crossover strength into the front lever without actually performing the front lever, provided you use that full range of motion and come right down into that tucked front lever and then pull the chest all the way up. Now for a lot of people these are too hard and you won't get adequate range in the pull, so it is important to make sure that you're truly ready. An easy way to transition and to build up that strength is to pull more towards the belly button in the feet elevated row. Another great variation if you've hit a plateau is just a single ring row. These work great. They're also awesome for any group trainer that has a limited amount of equipment. Now you've doubled the amount of ring stations. The body and the nervous system evolved pulling itself towards objects as well as pulling objects. Doing ring rows is awesome, but it's also important to pull things towards you. Here I'm demonstrating 3 different single arm pulls. The first one, the rib cage is stable and the arm moves around the rib cage. The second one, the whole rib cage and spine rotates and the hips are stable. Then I'm integrating the hips in the last version. So now the hips are rotating. Ideally, you want to have integrated training to get good carryover into life so that your body can work as it evolved to. So when we pick up objects or move objects, we use our legs, our hips, our trunk, and our arm together as an integrated system. A lot of people don't like using resistance bands for dynamic movement because when you lengthen a band, it's going to get tighter, and when it shortens, there's less resistance. An easy way to fix that is with the lunge pull. So what you do, you're going to step together and then step right back. That way the band length stays relatively similar. The same integrated pull pattern can be done using the ring, reaching up that strap line and then stretching right out. You can do head on body where the head rotates as well as maintaining that gaze looking straight up. The other one is the stable rib cage, where you stabilize the rib cage and just the arm moves around the rib cage. Now this is an anti-rotation exercise. Bent over rows are a great way to stabilize the spine and hinge forward through the hip. The basic double arm pull is great for saving time and really working the back and the legs. For those that want to get more load through the arm, place one hand on the leg and that will decompress the spine. You can also do this in the lunge pattern with the hand on the knee. Then you can come back into doing single arm pulls with both feet on the ground in that nice square stance. Then you can have the bent knees and progress to straight legs to really get that nice hamstring lengthening. I love bent over rows with straight legs because I'm mobilizing and strengthening my hamstrings while I'm strengthening the pull pattern. The integrated lunge bend pull pattern is a great way to feel the strength of the legs come up through into the hips and get expressed through the arm. For all the horizontal pulling exercises, you want to have a horizontal pushing exercise. So you get that mirrored cellular loading across the joint. When you walk out of the gym, you're going to walk out balanced. Both sides of the joint have been loaded effectively and you're going to get nice adaptation, a good postural response, and you're going to keep that balance and tune your instrument. The basic push that you want to get down is the push-up. And doing it with more weight in your feet is an awesome way to really feel that full range of motion and develop postural endurance at the same time as strength endurance to lay the foundation to go to heavier lifting. For the push-up on the knees, you want to come right down to the floor. You want to keep a nice stable spine and you want to watch your alignment. The spine should not move around. You're pivoting at the knee and you want to use a wider elbow position to start with. As you get stronger, you can progress to the toe eccentric, so you're lowering in that full bridge and then pushing up on the knees. Then you can progress to doing the lowering eccentric and the concentric on the toes. Then you want to go into more of a closer grip position, so you're using more of the triceps, which is much heavier, and you can go into more of a planche position and progress through that same method from the knees to lowering on the toes, coming up on the knees, to lowering and pushing up while you're on the toes. If you think push-ups are easy, then lean further forward. The planche style push-up is a great way to get more of your whole body weight into the shoulder. To increase the range of motion in the push-up, you can use a set of parallettes, 2 boxes, 2 chairs, 2 dumbbells, so that way you can go further than the floor. To prepare for the ring push-up, I like using the turned out position into parallettes. You can do the same on the floor, and if you go really deep, you're going towards that back lever. Next up, we have the ring push-up. So using that full turnout as you press up and then lowering down nice and deep. Obviously with the rings you can go deeper as you get stronger, but you want to feel that nice external rotation, full protraction of the shoulder blade at the top of that support position. To mirror the front lever pull, the planche push-up using the band feels awesome. Here I'm using the band to make it easier for me, but as you get stronger, you would use less band help. The standing resistance band press is a great way to integrate stability in the legs into the dynamic movement of the arm. The first version here, like the pull, is a stable rib cage. Then you're going into a dynamic motion through the rib cage where the spine rotates. Then you're integrating the hip movement, driving from the legs into the hips, into the trunk, and then into the arm. The optimal tool for the standing horizontal push is a cable machine. The bands work really well. They're a great way to activate and to get nice strength endurance. You're probably going to find as you go heavier though, that you probably get more value out of doing closed chain pushing with push-up exercises or doing bench press style exercises with the dumbbell. That being said, you can do it in a way that allows for more consistent resistance through the movement. Here I'm going down in the lunge, sinking forward, so that way when I press, I'm going to come up and back and keep the band at the same tension. To finish off, we've got the floor press. Now I like these if you've got shoulder problems and you can't go too deep. This limits the range of motion. The single arm floor press versions are great. You can do a similar round the rib cage version and then integrate the rib cage and then integrate the hips as you would in the standing band push. All these horizontal pulling and pushing exercises are awesome. The key thing is to work out what you need and where you're at. So you want to make sure that you build a solid foundation. Performing high reps at the beginning, the 12 to 15 range, really light, and improving nice postural endurance and strength endurance in the patterns is essential to build a solid foundation. The next step, you want to go into that 8 to 12, where you're loading up a bit heavier, and that way you can develop some muscle mass. Then you want to go into 5 to 8, where you're getting heavier loading, and now you can work towards building more strength. Then you can go into some heavier 3 to 5 rep lifting, where the exercises are quite heavy, and then you might go back to doing some of the easier exercises, but do them much faster and explosively to develop a power response. You never want to train to absolute fatigue. You always want to keep 1 to 2 reps of good form in the nervous system. If you're not developing yourself through all these different types of conditioning responses, you're not allowing for optimal development. You want to play around with those different reps and use them intelligently. If you can develop slow twitch, fast twitch, and all those different fiber responses, you're going to be much healthier through the pulling and the pushing pattern, and you're going to find that you will not plateau, that you'll always have some variety in there. You don't want to change too frequently though, because if you do, you'll find that you're not really adapting to anything. You might be someone that responds well in 4 weeks. You might take 12 weeks to really get something out of a certain rep range or a certain conditioning response. Now, when I look at a week, I do horizontal pulling and pushing one day, vertical pulling and pushing one day, high pulls and dips one day. One of them might be in a high rep range, one might be in a moderate, one might be in a low rep range. And that way I keep that spectrum alive. The most important thing to develop good horizontal pulling and pushing is to use that range of motion and use it in everyday life circumstances, as well as train it consistently. So how you train over the course of a year is going to make a bigger impact than just going hard for a month or 2 months. You want to make sure you nourish your body, that you rest your body, you hydrate your body, and you really look after yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Don't compare yourself to other people. Just work with where you're at and develop yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this content, and I'll see you next time.